Hi. Boy, is it frustrating to have all these adults call themselves kids when they're 22 or 25. It's like, you're an adult. I mean, how did we get to this point? And safe spaces. And God forbid someone should talk about something that these young people disagree with. They get triggered. I mean, they're so weak. um, it's astonishing. So why, right? I have several opinions, and I'm going to share them with you guys. And I also am going to, we're going to look at an interview that Dr. Peterson did and what he thinks is going on with it. Why are they so weak? And the video that we're going to look at talks about millennials, but that's a blanket term. And I think we said millennials for a long time because that was before Gen Z really came up. But Gen Z are the people in their 20s, who at least early 20s, at least to 25. Some people say all throughout 20s is Gen Z. The millennials are a little older now, and even they're starting to go, wait, what's going on? And even they can see what Gen Z is. And they're just like terrified of everything and lacking completely in coping skills. So it's for Gen Xers, man, I mean, we had to be strong. We had to be strong and, take care of ourselves and fall down and break a bone and keep on going. I'm not saying that was right because we were sort of the other way, possibly. But yeah, it's bad out there. So let's see what Dr. Peterson has to say about it.
In his piece, The Coddling of the American Mind, Jonathan Haidt outlines why millennials today are so fragile and lacking resilience in life and in relationships, in university courses and the workplace, and what has led to this overwhelming push to be protected from anything difficult or uncomfortable or offensive. And he calls it the flight to safety. Mm-hmm. And I think you've used that expression. He outlines the core reason for this fragility of mind and emotion. He says it stems firstly from over-functioning and overprotective parents, then schools, now reaches into our universities. And of course, more people than ever go to universities in the West. So they form a much bigger bulk in our community afterwards. And it leaves them tragically unprepared and unarmed for life and relationships. Would you comment on that?
Well, I think it's good to take a step back from that and think about it in the broadest possible terms. There is definitely an epidemic of overprotective parenting. But it's useful to ask why. And my suspicions is that this is driven by very fundamental biological and cultural phenomena that aren't generally considered in relationship to this issue. We don't have very many children. We don't have 12, 6 of whom die. We have 1 or 2, and that makes them very precious, right? We're unwilling to take risks with them, and no wonder. And then we also have them much later in life. And so, if you have a kid when you're 18, you're still a kid. You're going to go out and have your life, right? Because you're you're in the height of your exploratory, you're in the height of the exploratory part of your life. You're not going to overprotect your kid because you're still a kid. But if you're 40 and you have 1 child, it's like all your eggs are in one basket. Yeah. And the probability that you're going to take undue risks with that precious person is very, very low. Now, obviously, there's some advantages to that because, great, you devote resources to your child, and foster their development. But
too many resources to the child. Overindulging your child is a form of abuse, in my opinion.
The downside is that you have every motivation to hover. And maybe you're also extraordinarily desperate as a mother to maintain that bond with your child because you've struggled so long to achieve it. It's highly, highly valuable. You can't take a risk.
No,
so these So we might say, well, perhaps overprotective parenting is a secondary and unintended consequence of the birth control pill and the fact that people now have children later in life. Could easily be. You know, if you have 6 kids, it's like, what are you going to do? Helicopter parent them? It's like, no, you're so tired you can't even get off the couch if you have 6 kids. And they outnumber you, right? They're raising each other. They're competing and they're taking each other down a peg. They're not.
I hope they're not raising each other. That's just mob rule. I get what he's saying. You can't hover over 6 children, but you sure as heck can have expectations, rules, consequences for breaking rules. No, you can't hover, and it's much harder to overindulge 6 children. But as far as, them raising each other, I don't think that they're teaching each other manners, and that's probably not what Dr. Peterson means. But yeah, I think it's in this day and age, people I can imagine, people having a bunch of kids and just being like, go on. And I think they do, because they're not actually raising each other. They're not teaching each other right from wrong, in the brood. That's not what's happening.
There's no overprotection there. But with a single child landscape or dual child landscape, mostly a single child landscape, then you're going to overprotect. And then that ethos starts to permeate the schools, and it starts to permeate the higher education institutions as those children mature. And then that all reinforces it. It's not good. It's not obvious what to do about it either, because if it is driven by demographics in that sense, it's a much more intractable problem than we
I know what to do about it. Put the men back in charge.
think. So I did some of that in 12 Rules for Life. I said, look, what you have to understand is that you're a danger to your children no matter what, right? You can let them go out in the world and be hurt, or you can overprotect them and hurt them that way. So here's your choice. You can make your children competent and courageous, or you can make them safe. But you can't make them safe because life isn't safe.
Exactly.
So if you sacrifice their courage and competence on the altar of safety, then you disarm them completely. And all they can do is pray to be protected.
And protected by whom? Oh, they like the state a lot. When kids rely on mommy and daddy, but usually mommy, to make them safe, and they have this idea in their head that life can be safe, well, they're going to give away freedoms easily in exchange for safety. And they're going to give away those freedoms to the state. It isn't too far-fetched to see that happening and to know that in Mao Zedong's time in the middle of the 20th century, it was all about, teaching the kids a certain way and having them almost be thinking that they're smarter than their own parents. And so they start to look at the state like daddy government.
So in the very act of trying to do the right thing by them, although often with a selfish motive,
Right.
There you go.
often with a selfish motive,
There you go.
we strip away the tools and the equipment, the understanding they really need.
You don't strip it away. You're not imparting it. It's not like they have it. They have all these coping skills that they're born with, and then you took them away. No, you have to actually teach that, impart that to them, give them a roadmap. Teaching them about God and right from wrong is a great start. So you're not stripping it away. You're not imparting it. You're not creating it.
Need to make life work.
Well, that's the Oedipal mother, right? That was Freud's great discovery of the dark mother. And the dark mother is the person, she's the witch in Hansel and Gretel. Gingerbread house, lost children, too good to be true. It's like a house of candy. Wow, who could want anything better? What lives inside the house of candy? The witch that wants to fatten you up and eat you. Right, a cautionary tale about overprotective parents, overprotective mothers, about the overprotective feminine. It's like the psychoanalysts, they were so smart, said the good mother necessarily fails. That's such a brilliant phrase. It's like you can't, as your child matures, you have to fail more and more as a mother, right? Until by the time you're 30, your child's 30, let's say 25.
you can look at it like Phil more and more as a mother. Maybe if he was speaking to a mother, that would be a great way to say it to her. But to say it to people who are not, going to get offended. I mean, really, that's why we have fathers. Fathers raise children into adulthood. Mothers do the, protecting the infants and the little babies and stuff, and yeah, providing a sense of safety to them. That is why dads take the children and bring them up the rest of the way. Now, the problem is that we don't have a lot of dads out there that have learned that that was the right thing to do, because they've been indoctrinated with they're evil if they try to do that, and that women are somehow the better parent. So the men stand back and let the woman lead, and the woman is leading the child right into being too scared to function.
For that matter, you're not their mother anymore. I mean, obviously you are, but the relationship has hit something like quasi-peer status. Not entirely, obviously, but the child's independent, able to stand up on their own 2 feet and take on the world.
So now we see this thing, a university student runs into some difficulties with study or whatever and brings their parents in to talk to the faculty.
Yeah, or they go off and color.
Oh my God.
I mean, when I went to Queen's University a week ago, and there was a lot of noise and horror around that, the people who were decrying my visit set up coloring book stations so that people could be comforted because, the evil professor was coming to talk. It's like, and, as a clinician, and Haidt knows this as well, and all the clinicians worth their salt know this, the worst thing you can do for someone who's anxious is overprotect them. It makes them worse. The clinical literature on that is crystal clear. What you do for people who are hyper anxious is gradually expose them with their voluntary consent to increasingly threatening situations. That cures them. It's exactly the opposite of what all the mental health professionals, and I use that term extraordinarily lightly, are trying to do to produce safe spaces on the university campus.
I don't know about y'all, but my mother forced me to continue to take riding lessons. I loved horses, but I was scared. I didn't want to talk to people, and I was scared of the horses because they were big, but I loved it. I loved riding, and it was the only thing that was teaching me how to come out of my shell, and my mom forced me because I was so painfully shy and so scared of everything. And she would not allow me to be that way. And that's obviously not usually what mothers do, but I didn't have I had a good dad. I love him, but he was not, she was the one who almost pushed me to do things where he wanted to sort of baby me. So I'm very grateful that I was forced out of my comfort zone, because I would have been able to deal with the things I've had to deal with in this life if I hadn't been. And you can see all these young adults, good God, when they have a real problem, what are they going to do?
Like if a space needs to be defined as safe, you can be sure that's the one thing it is not.
Jordan, this has been fascinating. Let me pay you a compliment. In some ways, I think the most valuable thing you can do for us is to model the courage to speak your mind. You do it forcefully, you do it courageously, you do it compassionately, because the reality is you only have to spend a bit of time with you to realize that you actually care, especially about our young people and what they're experiencing, and especially for our young men, because we know boys model themselves on men who they respect. You're doing a great job of modeling courage in the face of fire.
Well, there's something I'd like to say, maybe in closing, about courage. People say that to me, and I don't think it's exactly right. There's a line in the Old Testament: the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And I think it's more like that. It's not that I'm courageous, it's that I'm afraid of the right things. Yes. So when I made my videos, it wasn't like that didn't make me nervous. But I was less nervous about going back to bed and not saying what I had to say than I was about making the videos, because I know where this is going. Yep. I don't want to go there. And so it's not so much courage, it's that it's a matter of it's less risky to say something than to remain silent when you know there's something to be said. I know that to be the case. And so lots of times in life, it's like, there's no pathway forward that's going to shield you from risk. You get to pick this risk, or you get to pick this risk.
Right.
And I think I picked the lesser risk. And that might be wise, but I'm not so sure it's courageous.
Oh, I love that, man. Yeah, I mean, we do have an obligation to, when something needs to be said, to say it. And obviously, I have a teeny tiny little YouTube channel, and but I've always said from the beginning, if it reaches one person, it makes a difference in one person's life, then it's worth it, and that's what it's for. And once I knew that, and once I started realizing that it has helped several people, it's no longer a choice of whether or not I'm going to make a video or I'm not going to make a video or I'm going to keep doing my channel or not. It's an obligation. And as he said, I just related to this, and I just wanted to share with you guys. As he said, like, he knows where it leads, and I know he means society in general. And what I mean is it on a micro level. Like, if I choose not to make a video, and say that video is going to be the thing that said the thing that the man needs to hear, and I didn't make the video, so he never hears that men are not bad. He never knows that he's not the only one going through all this hell. I know where that leads. It doesn't lead to a good place. And I don't want men to be ending themselves on the scale that they're doing, on any scale. I don't want one more. But I've seen too many men suffer, including my dad when I was younger, because of these similar reasons and societal reasons. And it's an obligation. So he is such a good role model, such a good mentor for so many people. And I loved what he had to say about why the younger generations are so weak and what the dangers of that are. And he was careful, but he definitely was talking about mothers, and he didn't say anything about fathers. He didn't say anything about masculine anything being a problem. So all I can think is that he's being tactful in saying things in a way to get the message across without saying something that inflames everybody and then the message is lost. That's what I would like to think is happening, because there's no way he doesn't know, exactly what's happening with the lack of fathering, the lack of fatherhood, because men are not allowed to, So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and hope you're having a good day so far. I want you guys to take care of yourselves, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you.